This is just you. I'm here on this particular video to discuss a couple of different topics. I'm going to kind of jump around. I wanted to show you all, or begin in a video series to just loosely discuss and talk. I don't know if I'll get any comments. I probably won't, because the world is under a one world totalitarian government under the rule of the Theocratic rule of psychiatry. And because of that, the media, everything, everyone really is being psychically, subliminally controlled through the collective conscious. They're being not as much directly controlled as they're being, though there probably are some people who are being directly controlled, they're being coerced and incentivized to comply with slavery and roboticism and non-human behaviors, which are the norm and the status quo for 99% of the populace, and the 1% who do not conform, including voice hearers, are of course oppressed, tortured, and murdered by the 99%. Because all of reality in a human viewpoint is filtered through psychiatry. You can't think, you can't eat, sleep, shit, piss without psychiatry being there as your nanny and as the parent's patriarch, as the parent of the nation, of your nation. That's a funny thing about psychiatry working through the parent's patriarch, which, look it up if you don't understand English common law. It's where it comes from. That's what we work off of in American government, which is ironic because most of the American government functions off of English common law, and they were supposedly rebelling against England to create America in the first place, which shows how hypocritical humanity are. So this is a scathing criticism of humanity in general as well. I know for a fact that if you are psychic, if you are telepathic, if you are a voice hearer, you are not treated by 99% of the social hierarchy, authority, social dominance hierarchy of humanity as human. Therefore, might as well not be human. You're not being treated as human. It's the same thing in slavery. It's the same thing in Nazism. The whole point of slavery and Nazism is to dehumanize you, is to exclude you from human affairs entirely. They exclude you from human affairs entirely and dehumanize you. And they're going to make it sound like it's good and it's good for you and you are human. You're just a lesser human than the rest of society because you're abnormal, which is an absolute bullshit virtue signal and fraud. Okay, so back in the topic at hand, I'm going to branch off in a couple other videos, but this video alone, I'm going to basically outline how psychiatry is organized, one world organized psychic sacrifice, because the psychics are a race. This can be looked at anthropologically, archaeologically, historically, however you want to phrase it. But just like there were different subhuman types that evolved, Neolithic age and everything like that, and fought each other, that's what this is. Psychiatry is literally the world government of oppression of another evolved race or species of humans. These species of humans I just call psychic. I call the psychic race. They're being coordinatedly oppressed, tortured, and murdered for money, for profit, because money is the system of humanity, because humanity is a system of slavery, hatred, and warfare, and rape. And if I am open, I'm an open book. I'm open to rebuttals, refusals of this reality, because I support everything I say with evidence. And the funny thing is, up to 90% of what I'm saying comes from psychiatry itself. When I say humanity is responsible for the rape of the psychic race, I mean it. Because Just Mirlou, I believe he's French psychiatrist. I have his book, The Rape of the Mind, describes psychiatry as brainwashing, mind control, to the point where it erases the identity. And that's what we're going to get into, because you see here, when you talk about spirit possession or demon possession, psychiatry terms it as this dissociative identity disorder or disease. They're all so-called diseases. But diseases are not real scientific things. They're human anthropocentric perceptions of other life or disturbances in their lives. Other words known as demons. So we have not graduated with science from, as humans, as labeling things as demonic or bad. Because here's the first thing when you're entering into any debate or conversation about any of this, is that humans generally, just like machines, just like animals, we take it as animals, we assume that animals don't. Humans do not differentiate between the mind and the body. This is an age-old philosophical debate. And whenever you start talking about any of this, it's kind of like the sands upon which you built your house are shifting. And in the case that you either do believe in the dualist philosophy that there is a body and then there is a mind or a soul, or you believe that materialistically, like most science does today, that the soul, the mind doesn't exist. It's just a generation of the body, or particularly the brain, which is a mechanical and literally robotic view of existence. Okay, that's what the majority of humans believe on this planet. The science, that epistocratic, so-called scientific people, they believe that human beings are mere machines. Especially psychiatry, because psychiatry is heavily involved in cybernetics. And there's a documentary out, it's hard to find, hard to get. It's called Minds of Men. You can find it on YouTube, or at least you can for now. The Minds of Men. And it talks about all the connections, or a lot of the connections, between psychiatry and cyberneticization, which is BCI, brain-computer interface, so on and so forth. And I've seen some of the technology work with this. So human beings, according to science, according to the status quo, according to psychiatry, are no more than machines. By the way, being a machine makes humans slaves. In fact, the very on-off switch of a computer, known as the I/O port, I/O meaning binary code, simply means on and off, and 0 means slave, 1 means master. I believe that's how it was. So if you think I'm off topic here and I'm just going on a psychotic, whimsical, giving word salad rants and stuff like that, you'd be gravely mistaken. This is literal to the T, to language, to where language could even describe what I'm telling you. That's how logical and realistic this is. That's how logical and realistic it is to be psychic and telepathic. Okay. And I know most of you won't respond to this, won't comment on this, because the truth is you hate reality and you hate psychics and you hate the fact that humans, so-called humans, are beneath us. And if you are a latent psychic, that's fine. You could be one of us. You could be on the side of reality. But to be human, to be a machine slave, is on the wrong side of reality. It is a psychosis. How wouldn't it be when the figurehead, the hallmark of all psychiatry being schizophrenia, right, is about being split-minded. Well, if there's a split mind and a split mind is unhealthy, then there is a one-mindedness, which psychiatry, again, doesn't explain, and it doesn't have to for some reason, what that means. What is the opposite of split mind if it exists as a disease? I'm telling you right now, that is a telepathic mind or a hive mind or a connected, always connected mind, one which psychiatry will deny exists, yet will still use false pretense, like especially in the case of sluggish schizophrenia, where you don't have to exhibit any of the symptoms of their criterion or guidelines for schizophrenia, and you can still be dehumanized, tortured, and murdered under whatever hidden agenda or interest that the psychiatric powers that be have, usually under the state. But psychiatry has more power than the state. They have more power than the church. And psychiatry has effectively replaced the church and also replaced government in the world. This is a fact. I'm an experiencer of this day to day in my day-to-day life, constantly being bombarded with literally everyone telling me I need to take medicine because they're calling these drug poisons, which they're actual psychochemical warfare agents, which I've already covered on this channel before. All the time, both telepathically and in regular vocalized life. They'll admit it to me. Yeah, you're psychotic. You need to be on medication, quote unquote. Let's see, their medication is literally a sacrificial ritual. We'll see that here. I will link this in the description, this page here. It talks about how demon possession, or spirit possession rather, is a dissociative phenomena you would call psychologically. And so I'd rather kind of just, instead of reading this, allow you to pick over this yourself and kind of draw some of your own conclusions. But the thing is, I established this channel for telepaths, for voice hearers. And of course, it's not going to get much play because of that. Because of the circumstances I've just mentioned, gone over, prefaced with. Unfortunately. I'm kind of fighting a lost cause here. Because I'm looking for voice hearers that have not been brainwashed or are willing to reconsider their enforced beliefs, which have become literally compulsory by law, or not by law, as more extrajudicially through psychiatry. Since psychiatry rules the world and it rules everything that goes on in the world, even more than the state, even more than the church did in the past. like I said, to reconsider that they're schizophrenic, or that the explanation is demons, the explanation is aliens, the explanation is the government themselves. I can tell you right now, the government has no interest in any of this, but they do have shared interest like psychiatry, to control your mind, to control your body, which is why they have given all their power up, state power, to psychiatry. Literally the DSMs of America and the is it ICM? I can't remember what it's called. The International Codes for Mental Illness are literally mind control manuals. Diagnostical manual are mind control brainwashing manuals. And also slave ownership manuals. It's no different than a manual you get for a personal computer. Personal computer, personal slave, same difference. Because you're able to manage that personal computer, that personal slave, however it is you see fit. And what usually goes is the majority rules. So if everyone's Christian, you're going to be Christian, and we're going to brainwash you into seeing everything through a perspective and a lens through your mind of Christianity. If we want you to vote a certain way, such as in Soviet Russia, when slug of schizophrenia was being used, the political abuse of psychiatry. They want you to be communist, whatever, blah, 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 Soviet, yada, yada. This is how it works. We want you to believe, if you're telepathic, that you have a disease, which is in the archaic, outmoded, or obsolete, antiquated fashion, is the same as you are demon possessed or spirit possessed. And this is bad, this is a curse, whatever, because it's coming from a moralistic Christian standpoint. And psychiatry has the authority over your identity. You don't. The government doesn't even. Because if somebody tells you you're not acting like yourself, you're behaving like someone else, because they know who you and you are, because you're just a line of code, or you're what someone else or another authority wants you to be. You're not yourself. You're not free. You don't have free will. You don't have any of that. A free mind and free will. Free mind and free will are illegal under psychiatric rule. And that's what it is to be human. To follow along, to be a slave. I mean, here it even tells you, which, by the way, slavery is possessive. Psychiatry is a form of possession, form of slavery, form of ownership of your mind and body. But first, they have to convince you that you're one of them first. You are normal. You're in the in crowd. Everything's normal. We normalize brainwashing and grooming. So they all act the same. So that way they're predictable and they're manageable. They're controllable. We train humans to be violent slaves, to take commands like computers irrefutably, in the world's militaries, and to perform the world's war crimes we call war, where they sanction torture and murder for profit. Okay. This is my stance on humanity. This is, again, a scathing criticism of humanity because I am not human as a psychic, and I will not be lied upon and told that I'm a danger, that the criteria for judicial hospitalization is what they call it in America. To be detained, tortured, and murdered by my own government or by proxy psychiatry, usurping the rule on all of my so-called ethical human rights. So I am fighting for not human rights because humans don't have rights. Humans only have the right to follow psychiatry compulsorily, which psychiatry is nothing more than a race war against my race, the psychic race. That's all it is. It's all it's ever been. And before that, it was Christianity. And before Christianity, it was disparate tribes warring against demons and demonic possession. That's what this is. Because when you are this other species of human, the psychic race, the psychic, which I have many names for, we came before humans did. And there's proof of this. There's a researcher named Julian Jaynes, I believe it is, who talks about the bicameral mind. It's BICAMERAL, I believe it is, bicameral mind. And the bicameral mind is basically the mind of the telepath, the mind of the psychic. It is where, at a time in not humanity, but the psychic race, which came before humans, who do not have the bicameral mind, who are not telepathic, because they have been whittled down by the genocidal race war against them through the advent of proto-psychiatry, and then finally the form of psychiatry that we have today ruling the world. Okay. I'll link some of that in the description as well if you want to look it up, the bicameral mind. I might make a couple videos and name it the bicameral mind just to get people awoken to the fact that it is telepathy and that we are a race. And even right now, I'm having them humans telepathically attack me. I know many of you find, oh, well, this is evidence of psychosis. He's hallucinating. I don't care. You can say that and I'll let you know ahead of time that when you say that, you're doing something which is hypocritical and contradictory because you're simultaneously dehumanizing me. And then you're trying to humanize me by saying, oh, no, you're human. It's just that you're not in reality. You're psychotic. You're hallucinating. You can't have both. It's a logical fallacy. It's alogical, as psychiatrists say. It's an alogical fallacy. Yeah. And here's another thing. If that's not psychic, that I'm hearing you and others attack me, then how come these hallucinations are so close to the beliefs you already hold? And if you're not brainwashed, how come everyone holds the same beliefs? That I'm psychotic and I need to be on medication because I'm telepathic. And what do I hear telepathically? You're still going to say I'm hallucinating, right? But I'm hearing you say I need to be on medication. I'm hearing you say I'm psychotic. I'm hearing you say things like, oh, I am God because I'm human. Because I'm normal. Because I have social status. That's what makes me better than you, because I have social status and I'm not telepathic, which is racism, by the way. So yeah, to continue, human beings. Again, like I was saying, the concept that you're not yourself if you're telepathic. That you don't have a self unless it's authored by the authorities of humanity, right? Unless you have no self-agency, and your agency comes entirely from psychiatry and psychiatric rulership and psychiatric masters. You as a slave, right? You comply with everything psychiatric. Nothing exists outside of psychiatry. You're a complete robot. You're cyberneticized. You're just waiting for the chips and all like that, like the transhumanist and post-humanist agenda. You're ready to give up your free will to be a machine, a fearless killing machine, a fearless raping machine, fearless slaving machine. Which, by the way, that was what was in the Matrix, what occurred in the Matrix, because humans exploited machines and made them their slaves, which is what you're doing now. But humans who are inherently violent, see nothing wrong with ownership. They see nothing wrong with all of these things, even though they're violent. And then they call the innocent psychic race violent, simply for being telepathic, simply for being more social than they are, for having the capacity to empathize and not be violent. Because violence is the antithesis of sociality. But humans socialize by violence. Hypocritically. By exhibitions of power and dominance, right? Precisely. It's called cratocracy, rulership by physical might, coined by Peter Kropotkin, who researched the idea in evolution known as mutual aid versus competition in nature. But of course, I'm going to be hated for quoting him because he wasn't a capitalist or a fascist or Nazi, basically. I'm going to be hated for that. And that's fine. You can call me a communist, you can call me whatever you want, but let yourself know that you're not about freedom, you're not about democracy when you do that. Yeah. So we're not ourselves because we're telepathic. That changes our entire identity, and that makes our identity a disease, right? Where it makes us demon possessed. So, and here's the thing. The problem is many voice hearers actually believe the hype and they believe the lies. And they believe, maybe because of their experiences, maybe not, that there is a medium that is causing them to hear voices. There is a medium of telepathy that is not them. This is inherently dissociative. Psychiatry doesn't have everything wrong. In fact, it's got most things right. And here's the thing. The government, the regulators of psychiatry, which aren't many, if any, and psychiatry itself has shared interest with governments in order to govern people purposely. I've even seen, and I can't find it anymore, I've even seen the documents where they have wrote to Congress, psychiatrists from certain universities have wrote to Congress and told them, hey, if you need us to abuse your political system for you and get people to fall in line with what you want, well, we're there for you. That's what we do. Because psychiatric research and scientific psychiatric research is different than the application of pharmaceutical chemical warfare agents. So there's a lot of good science, even though it's medicalized, which by being medicalized means that's completely confounded. It's not evidence, because medicine is a philosophical moral doctrine. It's not a reality, and it's not a science. It's an anthropocentric, that is, human-centered worldview, religious doctrine that is being foisted onto everything. Like, for example, in this reading, we have what they call the trauma hypothesis, is that all psychic phenomena stem from trauma. But trauma is, again, a medical term, which doesn't really mean much beyond the body and the brain. Is that, oh, your body experienced pain, whatever like that. So what is the inherent association with being psychic and trauma? There is none, other than the fact that humans that aren't psychic hate the psychic race, and they seek to traumatize them, and they seek to gain whatever they feel they gain sadistically from traumatizing their bodies. But see, that's what the difference between a psychic and a non-psychic is. A psychic has a soul. A psychic has a mind of its own. It has free will, free volition. A non-psychic does not. Therefore, they vie for power in any way they can. And the main way it expresses itself is through traumatization, is through violence. So since they can't socialize the way we do in each other's minds, they use violence as a social bargaining chip, where beforehand they would just talk rationally and sanely and organize socially. The hierarchy naturally is ordained. Since psychics came first, we are more highly evolved. And I know that goes against a lot of the linear type of evolutionarily concepts in science, and that's fine. That's fine. Sharks, for example, haven't had to evolve. They're the perfect creatures for what they do and how they survive in the ocean, which they won't for very much longer, because 4 degrees rather, the ocean seafloor have been heated by 4 degrees more than usual. And because of that, 34%, this is in 2023, 34% of marine life has already died off. So it's only a matter of time before 34% is 100, because if 4 degrees cause 34%, you're not far off. That's a pretty good chunk. It's more than 25%. It's more than a quarter of the ocean's marine life. Most people can't fathom how devastating that is. So humans are driving all life on the planet to extinction, and they're still the good guy, hunting down, racistly, genocidally hunting down psychics, while they're destroying all life around them. And we're the danger, we're the threat, somehow. Me speaking out to the psychiatric authorities, telling them I'm anti-violent, I'm non-violent, I wouldn't hurt myself, I wouldn't hurt other people, and they still find me to meet the criteria to be detained and tortured and medicated as a danger to public health. That's Nazism. That's like saying, oh, because you have Jewish background, you're a threat to the perfect German Aryan race. That's literally what that is. The perfect, normal human race, which, for profit and other interests, characterizes me and my race as demonic and criminal and morally wrong, karmically bad. The list goes on, sinful. And like I said, I think I've linked you If not, I'll link it in the description again. Bible.ca, a website, which is a Christian website, which talks about how the true history of psychiatry, where sin was the etiology, that is the cause of mental illness or demon possession. So it's our fault, it's our problem, it's all bad, it's all negative vibes. Something as simple as telepathic socialization by humanity is so threatening because it's not materialist, because it's not violence, because you can't get it by pointless, meaningless plays of violence. Because you can't gain control from violence. See, if you can't be brought up or be valued on any other grounds than, oh, how violent you are or how violent you can be in humanity, then you are devalued. Because that is the way that they value themselves and value everything, not nature. Peter Kropotkin proved that when he discovered mutual aid in nature. That nature is not all violent competition. That's humans. Humans are all violent competition. And it is psychiatry, popular psychiatry, which I call profane psychiatry, which says that the human race and the psychic race can't coexist. Not me. Not me. We're coexisting already, and that's because humanity has failed at ousting the psychic race. Because I am one of them. Because in 2018, I was injected with over 2,000 milligrams of deadly neurotoxin manufactured by the company Abilify, brand name Abilify. And after that, I became telepathic. And then I learned how I became telepathic through the poisoning. And I can make a whole video just on that. And it might be my next video. That or the bicameral mind video. But 2,000 milligrams of Abilify rendered me telepathic. You can call it trauma. You can call it non-traumatic. I don't care what you call it. The fact is, the science is there that says that so-called psychiatric symptoms are caused by psychiatric drugs. And even when I said that, I hear one of my regular telepathic voices, who I know who this person is in real life, tell me that I need medicine. So even when I say that the medicine causes these things, it causes people to be psychic, which they're denying the science of that it causes people to be psychic, and by calling it psychotic, by calling it hallucinatory, which they have no way of knowing, no way of verifying. Yet they deny it outright, and everyone's just okay with it. They just comply. Hearing them say right now, they medicate him like it's going to save the human race to poison another race, which is superior to them. It's superior because, why? Because it's less psychotic, for one. Because unlike the human race, I'm actually nonviolent and I actually follow the law. While in the human world, they're sanctioning violence against us via false pretenses, saying that we're a disease, therefore have at us. Have at us. Now, this is systemic, and also what you call systemic racism. There's also another term for it. I can't remember what the term is, but it means that more than one minority, oppressed minority are involved. It starts with an I. And that's what this is. Because psychiatry made no qualms about it. The first editions of the DSM, the Diagnostic Statistical for Mental Illness, stated that trans people and homosexuals, just like Nazis did, by the way, but again, there's no connection, are mentally ill. So you have the systemic racism. It all leads back to the psychic race, and that any psychic, especially if they're trans, especially if they're this, that, or the other, could be black, Jewish, whatever, the government at the time is discriminating against and is oppressing, again, for profit and for power. And the invention of drapetomania, which was runaway slave syndrome, a psychiatrist created that, Samuel A. Cartwright, runaway slave syndrome disease, drapetomania. So that's it. So when you discriminate against a psychic, you're discriminating against everything that the status quo is saying is non-normal, which is non-white, non-Christian, non-white, non-Christian. It's xenophobia. Everything, well, it's not even xenophobia, because that's not the good term. I know what it truly is. It's fear of nature. It's fear of nature, biophobia. It's fear of the natural, because being black's not alien. And science has proven that everyone was black. At one point in time, black people were the only people on the planet that you call human. And then from there, outcropped the rest of humanity. Again, like I said, less psychotic. This is reality. It's not a violent tirade against reality in which I will rewrite the rules to serve me and my image. That's what humanity is doing. And that's what I'm against. And that's what anyone who also, which I'm guessing is 1% or less, as many as there are schizophrenics labeled on the planet. Telepaths, psychics, anyone who identifies as those things. I know because that it's less than 1%, because I've been trying to find others like me, and I haven't found one. I go to voice hearers where they congregate. Everyone either believes it's aliens, demons, they want it to stop, they're tortured by the voices, and they whine about it, or it's simple explanation, they're schizophrenic, psychiatry is right about everything. It's the science of reality. To have a brain and not use it, or it be used by other authorities who are apparently better than you, and then you just accept your lower rank in society. Okay, so what I'm talking about is literally a racial slave rebellion. That if you are called schizophrenic, that is a pejorative term, and it is racist. It is. And psychiatry has instituted Jim Crow laws and anti-miscegenation laws without passing actual laws, the same way they did with black Africans in America in the 60s, and before that with Jim Crow laws and the one-drop rule. Because they're instituting rules that aren't actual laws, and they're making these rules compulsory the same way they made racist rules compulsory in the South and everything like that. And right now, telepathically, I'm hearing a black person tell me, oh, they will kill you. Why? Because I'm talking about racism and the fact that it's all connected. No, no. I'm going out one way or the other, right? Only difference is I'm not a coward like the human race is. And I will not be a slave because I'm not human. Because they revoked my humanity card when they injected me, what was it, 2,000, 20,000? I can't remember. It was a long-acting injection that they claimed was going to make me stop hearing voices, which they lied and said I was hearing. And then I become telepathic. And they tell me, oh, that's an hallucination. So there's only, either way, psychiatry loses logically and in reality here, because on one side of the coin, they're telling me I'm hallucinating before to cover their asses, to make an alibi fraudulently as a pretense for drugging me. Right? They lose there because I'm telling the fucking truth, and they're guilty of perjury in a court of law, which can't be proven because they're not performing medicine, they're not performing science, and it's not evidence-based. It's just one, yes, usually this is the case, older white male authority over someone who has the lower rank and class in society, a patient. First of all, a doctor should not have that much power over someone, and it shouldn't have power over a patient, someone who is supposedly in his care at all. But that's libertarian, or that's anarchistic. And you're goddamn right it is. Because in America to be constitutional and follow the amendment laws on a federal and state level, it would have to be libertarian. Because exercising democracy is mob rule. Is mob rule. If the laws can just change, then they're not really in place in the first place. You understand what I'm saying? There's the entire rules and way that people are governed is completely schizophrenic in the first place. It makes no sense. No sense whatsoever. And then they sanction crime for the government, for psychiatry, and then tell us who have lower social status in the hierarchy that we can't do it and we're going to be punished for doing the same things, but it's different because of who's doing it and what authority they have been given to do it. So it's headed somewhere with that. As you see right here, trauma hypothesis.
Recalibrate socio-scan.
Now they claim that both the scientific circles and non-Western populations have trauma as a hypothesis for spirit possession. Absolute bunk. Because again, it's anthropocentrically filtered, skewed, confounded by the experience of being human, so on and so forth, yada yada. Okay. Yeah, like I was saying, with the drugs, okay, they gave them to me, said that I was hallucinating. I told them I wasn't. Then the drugs caused me to become psychic. They denied that as well, right? Because they're supposedly more rational and skeptical if they deny science or deny evidence of something scientifically, right? A joke. Okay, but I'm nearing an hour and starting to kind of trail off here. I will link the Bible.ca etiology of mental illness is sin article in the description. I'll link that, and I'll also link this article that I was showing you here. I hope you've enjoyed this, and again, I'm going to keep trying to find new ways to reach out to telepaths and psychics and mobilize the race against human genocide of us, because that's what this is. Okay, they're telling me right now, oh, you need medicine. Oh, they just even said, oh, they sacrifice you, or we sacrifice you. This is not my thoughts. I'm not thinking about this. And you have evidentiary proof here that I've provided for you that this is what this is. This is sacrifice. It's genocide, sacrifice, whatever you want to call it. It's a word, but that's the reality of what it is. It's not a hallucination when psychiatry has more authority and power than the government, and they're abducting people, torturing and murdering them. Okay, you can go on websites online where they talk about all the people that die in psychiatric, so-called under psychiatric care. All the people that are being tortured with so-called treatments. Okay, it's sacrifice. It's social sacrifice, civil death, social death, which includes slavery. If you don't comply, because compliance is the term, is the key. That tells you historically it's slavery. Because that is legally how the parents patriae, the probate court, the same court system judiciarily, which deals with ownership of chattel human slave property, which is the same now that deals with guardianship and conservatorships. Okay, would use the term compliance. Slave masters and the legal apparatus behind slavery would use the term compliance. And that's exactly what they say in psychiatry, because it is slavery. If you're non-compliant with medication, non-compliant with treatment, non-compliant with slavery, because you are no more than chattel property to psychiatry and any authority that goes through them. That is your family. Yes, I'm telling you, your family as a human being are slave masters. They're no more than slave masters. Every point in the hierarchy of Theocratic human violent rulership, there is slavery going on. That's where the inequality is and comes from. One person's a slave, the other's a master, so on and so forth. That's all it is. And the ultimate slave master is a psychiatrist, the ultimate authority. They claim to be the authority on reality, when really they're the authority on everything but reality. They're authority on slavery. Slavery of the human race and the extinction of all life on the planet, including the psychic race, which they think they're going to be successful in, but they're earth-shatteringly wrong, because I'm going to get into the reptilian reality of our evolution. And that's me speaking for the psychic race. Because they want to tell you need medicine because you are more evolved than they are. And if you are psychic, you are a telepath, you are a voice here, I am, again, though this probably will not reach you, I am there for you. Again, this is just you. And I will see you next time.